We now move to the men's three.
Sable is the national record holder from India. Watch for Caro, by the way, the Spaniard, massive PB this year. Never seen. That was so close. And Kipruto.
And India's Avinash Sable has qualified for the Tokyo Olympics 2020 in the men's 3,000 meter steeplechase event by shattering his own national record for the second time. This happened in a span of 3 days. Avinash clocked 8 minutes, 21.37 seconds to reach the Olympics qualifying standard of 8:22.
He is indeed, yes, Kenenisa Bekele. He is an astonishing athlete, 3 times Olympic gold medalist, multiple world champion, multiple world record holder. He's the outstanding favourite here today. It is a huge...
But it has to be that one man. As I said, a sea of humanity here, Kolkata going international. But when it comes to international, how big a name can it get? No bigger than Kenenisa Bekele.
They call him the Incredible. At the Paris World Championships in 2003, Kenenisa Bekele pulled off a ripper by pipping marathon legend Haile Gebrselassie to the tape and announcing to the world that a new king has arrived. But despite the stellar wins initially, doubts about his competence over the track still remained.
Like a road race, running has become a way of life in this country, and it's very apt that he will flag this off, Tim.
Yes, it is indeed. There's that elite field, the international men and the top Indian men as well. Tuamai there in blue, Lakshmanan in the red. He's the Indian favourite. Sule very much amongst the favourites. A new young talent coming through from Tanzania. Just 20 years old, Sule, but a monstrous talent. For 5,000 metres and 10,000 metres. And now that's an interesting shot. Just got his head down there and looked to me like he was leaning into this a little bit. I wonder if he's just getting a little bit impatient with any surges that are being put in by other athletes here. Kenenisa Bekele. Clearly, for my money, he's looking very, very comfortable, Gavin.
Tim, you were asking me about this being a fairly flat course. Well, this is the first of the areas where they climb up a slight bridge. They're on the bridge right now and they're going downhill, led by Kenenisa Bekele there, and not just Lakshmanan, but you can see Avinash Sable in the blue vest also keeping pace. In fact, Sable now ahead of Lakshmanan. So it's really good to see the 2 Indian runners competing and of course keeping very good pace.
So Bekele there to the right of picture. He said he'd be happy if he can get within about a minute of that today because he's building up to his next big race. Now nobody knows what that is. We suspect it'll be one of the big spring marathons in April, back to the London Marathon or the Boston Marathon or something like that. But for Bekele, this is a very important stepping stone towards that next major goal. And he looks comfortable, doesn't he? For my money, he looks lovely and relaxed there to the right of things. He's got a long raking stride for a relatively short, powerfully built man.
And Tim, at almost the halfway mark, Giro realizes, hang on, I'm supposed to be the pacemaker. This is my job. So let me start setting the pace. Yes, it's 12 kilometers too late, but let me do my job.
Well, that's exactly right, yes.
How much you run, how much the others are running. You're not looking to others, whether they are running faster than me or more than me. You just do your 100%. That's simple.
In fact, just moments ago, Tim and I were chatting even before you came in with your words of wisdom that some runners tend to look over their shoulders and maybe they don't succeed as much, but the ones who are focused in their zone,
In themselves, yeah. In their own.
are the ones who are succeeding. We can look at that on our screen. I think Bekele is a great example of that. He's been focused, he's not been looking around. Some of the others have been doing a bit of charity, passing the water privileged to have His Holiness Sri Sri Ravi Shankar in the studio. I suspect if some of these runners found out that he was here, they'd be throwing us out of
from his hands.
And there comes Avinash Sable. What a wonderful race from Avinash Sable. He's getting a standing ovation, and so get in, young man. This is a historic moment. He wasn't too far behind the champions. The likes of Kenenisa Bekele were only about a minute and a half ahead of him, and that smile tells the story. Yes, he might be in fourth place, but he was a very close fourth place behind Bekele, Tuimai and young Sule. Great moment for Indian running team.
Well, I'll tell you what, mostly why it's a great moment